My research focuses on summer indoor overheating in public housing, and my PhD project sits in the broader research program, Public Housing in Urban Regeneration, Maximizing Wellbeing Research Program. Today, I'll be presenting a case study I conducted last year in Wellington, focusing on how indoor overheating impacts vulnerable residents in public housing. So once when I was introducing my topic, someone asked me, what is indoor overheating? Is it we use our heaters more than needed in summer? And I said, no, it is a new public health risk introduced by the warming climate, especially in places like New Zealand, where the climate is typically temperate and heat is historically not a major concern. But the impact can be severe. Consider the 2003 European heat wave, which led to about 70,000 deaths. Most of the deaths happen indoors at home. Indoor overheating is closely linked with housing inequity, housing disparity, and energy poverty, because vulnerable populations are disproportionately exposed to these risks, but often lack the resources to deal with it. However, this issue is currently underexplored in New Zealand. So this graph is not from this case study, but a temperature study our team is currently working on. Basically, we use the temperature data from all the monitors that our team have access to, which were installed in 904 homes across the country. And all the homes are somehow experiencing energy hardship. So we mapped the percentage of time when summer indoor temperatures go beyond the WHO recommended maximum threshold, which is 24 degrees. So we mapped that under both monitored conditions and future climate scenarios. So for the current climate, more than half of the homes are spending more than 1/5 of the time warmer than the WHO recommended threshold. But for the future, even under the low emission scenario, the overheating issue is still going to get worse. And for high emission scenario, a large number of homes are expected to spend more than 3/4 of time overheated by 2090. So really it's time to start thinking about this issue. So back to the case study in Wellington. It focuses on public housing, which primarily serves low-income and vulnerable populations. This study is in collaboration with Te Toi Mahana, which is a community housing provider. It is a charitable trust established in 2023, taking over the public housing services provided by Wellington City Council. So they reached out to our research team last year after some tenants raised concerns about their homes being too hot in summer. So we started this case study trying to help understand how bad is that issue, how it is affecting tenants' health and well-being, and which cooling strategies work and which don't. So let's talk about the methods real brief. So when we are at home, we feel the temperature and the temperature affects us. But at the same time, we can take some actions to adjust the temperatures or adapt to the environment around us. But for public housing tenants who are often vulnerable, it is crucial to understand their specific thermal needs and the way and the barriers that they face when they're trying to respond to their home environment. To answer these questions, we need both the data story and the people story. So that's why we use a mixed methods approach. So basically, quantitative data and qualitative data are collected and analyzed separately, and then the results get compared to build an in-depth understanding. So how do we do this? The data were collected during 2 home visits. So the first one was in November 2023, so before the summer month starts. And I went to the tenant homes and set up the monitors for them and did a semi-structured interview. After the summer, I went back for another interview, which allows participants to add any new information or fresh recollections of their experience. So for the recruitment, as Te Toi Mahana is more familiar with their buildings and with their tenants, so they have distributed 40 flyers to the homes that they considered particularly prone to overheating. But they were not informed about the identities of the participants, and all the results shared with them are de-identified. So these are the buildings that the participants were living. all multi-level apartment buildings, concrete blocks. Most of them, as you can see, are with large glazing area, which means a lot of solar exposure during the day. 7 people participated in this case study, representing a typical public housing tenant profile, low income, not in paid work. 5 of them had an electric fan at home, and 2 had a portable air conditioners. In this case study, I used the CIBSE guidance to assess the risk of overheating. The CIBSE method is widely used in temperate climate or cooler climate in Europe. This method calculates the comfortable and maximum acceptable levels of indoor temperatures for each day based on outdoor temperatures. So this graph shows the monitored temperatures in each home throughout the summer. The dashed blue line is the comfortable temperature, and the solid blue lines represent maximum acceptable temperatures. You can see that most homes went over this threshold quite often, even for those with electric fans. But for the 2 with portable ACs, they were able to keep indoor temperatures within a comfortable range, so almost all the time, which also means they were running the portable ACs for a considerable amount of time. For the risk of overheating during sleep, the CIBSE sets 26 degrees as the upper threshold, but also states that sleep quality can be affected above 24 degrees. So I use both as thresholds. Looking at the results, Aotearoa has spent more than 90% of her sleeping hours above that threshold of 24, where for James, who had a portable AC, 0. The interviews really back up what we saw in the data. Many participants used the word unbearable to describe how they felt at home during summer months. And here I got one quotation I really want to share. I couldn't breathe properly. It felt like being stuck in a hot car with only a small window open. That is not a home anyone should live in. Plus, many have health issues that make them more sensitive to heat. And if they have limited mobility, it gets even worse because they are stuck inside the unit and they cannot just go outside, find a nice shading under the trees, or go to an air-conditioned public space like a library. They're not allowed to do so. So here we can see that passive cooling strategies have their own drawbacks, and tenants had to make some trade-offs to cool their places. The picture on the right shows one participant painted all their windows white just to block the sun, and left a tiny part unpainted to keep an outside view, which is a shame because it's really nice, beautiful view outside. Also, natural ventilation can be tough if the building isn't designed well for that purpose. The tiny window openings were raised by every participant, and as the buildings are located in Wellington, strong winds make it harder to do so. As we saw in the earlier graphs, electric fans don't really bring the temperatures down much. Portable ACs do, but they are super expensive for public housing tenants to buy and to run. Usually, the portable AC comes with a window kit, which is illustrated on in the graph on the left side. So the window kit with a hose going outside the window, usually fixed in place with a fabric with a zip. So it can be a potential falling hazard, considering this is about 10 levels high above a pedestrian path. The interviews showed that the heat had big impact on tenants' health and well-being, especially on sleep and mental health. Many reported feeling irritated, anxious, and fatigued. It also created a sense of disconnection from the home and from others. This is especially tough for public housing tenants, as they generally spend more time indoors at home, and moving out from an undesirable home environment isn't really an option for them. In conclusion, overheating is happening, and there is a growing demand for cooling. public housing tenants are especially vulnerable to it, and housing providers really need to become aware of this issue. Although everyone likes sustainable and energy efficient solutions, I really want to say that it is equally important to address the immediate cooling needs of the vulnerable tenants, particularly those with specific health-related cooling requirements. Portable ACs could help, but they are very expensive and tricky to use for public housing tenants. So we really need to start thinking about how we can support the most vulnerable people to manage indoor heat in face of a warming climate. Also, I know that the use of portable AC is not very green and not a sustainable option. But as we can see from the case study, passive cooling methods are insufficient and unfeasible sometimes when building aren't well designed for it. For example, a large glazing area, lack of shading, tiny window openings. New Zealand building standards haven't fully grasped how severe overheating can get, and not many housing providers do either. Despite the serious impact on health and well-being, heat isn't getting much attention compared to cold. But with rising temperatures due to climate change, it is only going to get worse. And we really need to start exploring long-term, cost-effective, energy-efficient, and sustainable cooling solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Zhiting. That was an amazing talk, I would say. So questions from the audience? Do we have questions online? Oh, okay.
So you were doing this work in partnership with the Housing Authority. What are their responses to this? Yeah.
Actually, I think they are quite actively seeking solutions to help their tenants out of this situation. And we actually we prepared a paper reporting the results, and two of the co-authors are from Te Toi Mahana. They are really happy to see this issue is getting more attention. But what they can do are quite limited with limited resources they can use. But I know they are talking to, for example, MSD to see if they can provide some subsidies for those tenants in real urgent needs to get some portable ACs. And also they are trying to provide advice to the tenants on how they may cool their spaces during summer months, which I think is really great.
Amazing, thank you. Please join me thanking Zhiting one more time.